Ladies and gentlemen, a man of few words, a bureaucrat turned Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh is no more. He was, in a true sense, a visionary whose efforts helped in bringing India out of the economic and nuclear isolation position. Tributes have been pouring in from across the world for Dr. Manmohan Singh, who died at the age of 92 at All India Institute Medical Sciences late last evening. Joining me today is former Vice President of India, Mr. Hamid Ansari. Also joining me is Mr. Ashwani Kumar, former Union Minister, a man who was part of Dr. Manmohan Singh's cabinet and someone who was part of Dr. Manmohan Singh's team when he was the Finance Minister in the early 90s and then went on to be the Deputy Chairperson of the Planning Commission in the 10 years that Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh was in office. Mr. Montek Singh also joins me on the News Hour tonight. Dr. Hamid Ansari, you've spent a lot of time with Dr. Manmohan Singh.
Thank you.
As the Vice President, as the Chairman of Rajya Sabha, as a diplomat in the past, you've also been somebody whose advice he would seek on issues of foreign policy. How do you remember Dr. Manmohan Singh tonight?
Thank you, Navika ji. I had different incarnations of association with Dr. Manmohan Singh. I knew him before I became Vice President, and later on in 7 years or so that I spent as Vice President when he was Prime Minister. So there are two different series of associations, and therefore the recollections relating to them have to be different.
True, but what are your memories of him, your interactions with him? How would you put them?
Well, I can start by talking about memories as Chairman of Rajya Sabha. And as I've often said, in that capacity, I was a referee in a hockey match. And I must say that that particular match, which was played for 7 years when Dr. Manmohan Singh was captain of one of the two sides, was played well. There were no occasions to use the red card.
Dr. Hamid Ansari, when he was in Parliament and Dr. Manmohan Singh on his last day recited a couplet by Iqbal, and he said, "Kuch baat hai ke hasti mitti nahi hamari." कभी-कभी उनकी शायरी का अंदाज ऐसा होता था कि बहुत कम लफ्जों में बहुत कुछ कह जाते थे.
That is the beauty of Urdu poetry.
And the beauty of Dr. Manmohan Singh, a man of few words, as people remember him?
Well, somebody who was well versed in Urdu poetry, and therefore he could think of the right thing to say at the right time.
Mr. Ahluwalia, you worked very, very closely with Dr. Manmohan Singh. Right from 1991, father of economic reforms in India. How do you recall your association with former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Well, you know, it's been, for me, quite a personal connection because both my late wife, Isha, and I, we first met Dr. Manmohan Singh when we were in Washington, D.C., and I was working for the World Bank and she was working for the IMF. And, you know, we found him to be a very inspirational kind of person. And he was largely responsible for encouraging us both to check up our jobs there and come back to India, me to work in the government and my wife to work in academic life. So we had a long personal relationship with him, and subsequently I had the privilege of being part of his team, both in the finance ministry when he was finance minister, and later on, when he became prime minister, he asked me to join him there as deputy chairman of the planning commission. So a very long personal sort of relationship. And, you know, it's, I mean, I think when you look back on what he managed to achieve in that period, it's quite remarkable. And I think you see that the newspapers reporting the loss of Dr. Manmohan Singh, his passing away, are full of statements that he really started, made all the big changes that put the Indian economy onto a new direction, which I think today's generation, they sense the optimism, they sense the potential. But very few of them, most of them were born after 1991. And I don't think enough of them are aware of how important the changes made in 1991 were. Because frankly, if we hadn't made those changes, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are now.
Mr. Ashwani Kumar, for you, a good friend, a colleague, a Prime Minister in whose cabinet you've served, how do you recall your association with former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Well, Dr. Manmohan Singh was first and foremost a father figure to me. I don't think I ever treated him or took the liberty of treating him less than that. He was, of course, a great friend, a friend in deed and a friend in need. Dr. Manmohan Singh was exceptional in so many ways. He was exceptional in terms of his integrity. He was exceptional in terms of his sense of compassion, his sense of right and wrong. We all know of his stoic demeanor. We all know about his quiet dignity, and that was certainly not put on. It was a part of his persona. It was ingrained into him. I think long years of hardship and his education and wisdom that comes with time defined what Dr. Manmohan Singh eventually was seen as. But the thing that I would always remember him for is the feeling of affection that he extended towards me. In very difficult moments, I knew I could look up to him not only as Prime Minister, but as a father figure who would gently guide me on the right path at a very difficult moment. He never carried his wisdom and his intellect on his sleeve. He kept it hidden, never gave the other person a feeling of inferiority in terms of intellectual capabilities. And whenever I would feel down on any issue, he would tell me a great line. He was always the triumph of hope over reality. He said, life is about hope. Hope for the best, you'll get there. So these nuggets of wisdom that I still carry in my heart. But his memories, this loss is too deep. I've not been able to adjust to it.
I know when you've known somebody like Dr. Manmohan Singh, understated, man of few words, humble to the core, sometimes taken for granted as well. I know the loss runs deep for the country. How do you think history will judge him?
Well, you are referring obviously to the press conference where he said that he hoped that history would judge him more kindly. And within a few hours of his passing, history has turned the page. And considering the accolades that we are hearing from across the political spectrum, from all over the world, not only from within India, I think history is reviewing its judgment. I think history will be kind to him. I have no doubt that a grateful nation will remain indebted to him, and history will be objective enough to know what spectacular contributions he made for the future of this country.
Hamid Ansari Sahab, there are many ceremonial occasions when as Vice President you would have been in the company of the Prime Minister. He was, of course, everybody knows, a humble man, a man of few words, But on such occasions, what is the impression that you carried from some of those meetings?
Oh, a person with great dignity and etiquette. Good company at all times.
Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, I want to ask you, it's something that Dr. Manmohan Singh has said in the past, and I want to ask you, he said in his last press conference that history would probably judge him more kindly than the opposition and the media had judged him in the second term. How do you think history is going to remember Dr. Manmohan Singh? How would you personally remember Dr. Manmohan Singh?
Well, there's no doubt that history is judging him much more positively than at that time the Indian media was judging him. I mean, there's no question that, you know, if you look at newspaper commentary today, he is clearly seen as having brought about major changes, not just when he was finance minister, but also in handling a very difficult UPA coalition, which had many different parties. And as you say, the Indo-US nuclear deal was one important thing that was achieved. But, you know, there were also other things like we did quite well in economic growth during the UPA. It had the highest growth rate ever that India has had. But at the same time, they were very concerned that its growth is not everything. And it's very important to bring poverty down. And actually, there was a very much greater reduction in poverty than had been seen before. So I think that, you know, at any given time, and perhaps it's also understandable that any given time, the media gets hung up on some particular thing and becomes negative. But if you look at the record as a whole, I don't think that I've seen anything in even today's media that disputes the proposition that he made a major contribution to the Indian economy and its development. Not just GDP growth, but a broader development, which puts India in a position where we can really do a lot better in the future. I mean, you know, in his first budget speech, I think he had said that, you know, quoting Victor Hugo, that nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. And what he said was the idea of India as a major superpower is an idea whose time has come. So I think he was clearly right.
Absolutely. And personal, the best memory of him that you will cherish?
Well, you know, look, I've been very fortunate in having a lot of support from him and a lot of mentoring. I'm not sure that I can think of any particular individual memory. Though in my book, Backstage, I mentioned lots and lots of little things which people might find interesting. But on this occasion, I don't want to reduce it to picking out one recollection. I think the broad picture is really what is important. And I think the broad picture is that people now recognize that he made a major contribution to the Indian economy during the time when he was finance minister and also prime minister.
Well, on that note, Mr. Ashwani Kumar and former Vice President Dr. Hamid Ansari, thank you very much for joining me to pay tributes that a nation is paying to the man whose loss will be felt for a while. The void that he leaves behind probably will never be filled. A decent man, a good man, a man with a value system that this country will remember for times to come.